Hello to you all. It's MCAT season, guys. Congratulations, you've made it this far. It's finally time for you to take all that stuff you learned in undergrad and put it to the test, and just kind of get super nervous and stressed out about this one test that you've been waiting for your whole life. All jokes aside, though, the MCAT is probably one of the biggest moments in a pre-med life, or just anyone pursuing any kind of MD or DO career. Um, let's start off with who the hell I am. So my name is Jay. I'm still in my undergrad, finishing on my fourth year. I took my MCAT last year in August. Did the whole applying and everything. Fortunately, I got in. I'm gonna be starting in August, which is I think 5 months from now. So 5 months, geez, that's pretty soon. 5 months from now at University of Virginia School of Medicine. Pretty excited, pretty nervous, but definitely not as nervous as I was last year around this time when I was preparing for my MCAT, because geez, that is one hell of a test. All right, so let's talk about the MCAT. I mean, it's a stressful test. We all know this, but at the same time, a lot of people make it out to be this like huge beast of like an idea, but you got to kind of keep in mind that this is, at the end of the day, it's still just a test. You're sitting on a computer, there's a question pops up, and you get like five choices or whatever, and there's always a right answer. So you kind of gotta you gotta step back sometimes, take a deep breath, and just kind of remember that as big of a test as it is, the best way to get a good score and to just kind of do well on it, and to not stress yourself, is to just calm down and remember, at the end of the day, it's a test. So when I was studying for my MCAT, I kind of, I knew it was stressful. I knew it was gonna kind of take a toll on me, but I kind of did, what's called reaction formation, which is kind of like took the whole thing, flipped it upside down, and instead of being like super stressed about it, I just kind of like relaxed. I was like, you know what? It's a test. If I do well, I do well. If I don't, whatever. If it happens, it happens. I've been studying for this my whole entire life. If I'm gonna do well on it, I'm gonna do well on it. I'm gonna do my best. I'm not gonna eat away at my brain. And I think the people that do that and they just calm down and they relax and they don't stress about it too much, I think those people do the best, because most of the people that I knew that were fairly smart, they got good grades, and they kind of stressed out about it too much, and they spent day in day out, they were just studying, and they kind of like, it's kind of like an endless tunnel of just studying and just not knowing what exactly to do. Those are the people that kind of bomb the test, and you kind of don't expect them to bomb the test. But the people that were kind of calm and they kind of took it step by step, they were organized, they had they had a plan, they had a goal. Those are the people that did well. So I think the best way to approach the MCAT is to kind of instead of being like, okay, I'm gonna lock myself in this room and just kind of not talk to anyone or anything, or just kind of sit here and all I do is kind of study for the next 3-4 months, is to instead of doing that, still keep a social life, talk to your friends, talk to your family, go out, have a good time, because you kind of need that. Your brain can't just like sit there and study for months and just not do anything. So I've laid out a few steps that you can take. I'm prepared. So these are the steps that I think, when I was studying for the MCAT, these are the things that I learned, and the best advice that I got on how to kind of study for the MCAT and study well for the MCAT and still keep a social life, because those two things kind of go hand in hand. You don't have to stress out about the MCAT to do well on it. In fact, I think it's the complete opposite. To do well on the MCAT, you should relax. So step one is, a lot of people, they study for the material, which is good. You should definitely study for the material. It's important, but they don't study for the test. And this is a huge, just like, please study for this test, because you're in undergrad and you're studying biology, you're studying chemistry, and you're learning all these things, and you're studying physics. And when you're studying for the MCAT, you kind of see all these things over again, and it's a little bit of a review. Even when you're taking notes, you're doing all these things, you kind of already have a general idea of what you're studying. So there's not really a new variable, except for one really big variable, which is the test itself. So people study for the material, they don't kind of learn how to take the test. And I think you need to learn how to take the test, because it's so new, and it's kind of a test that you've never taken before, and it's, the way it's set up and the way they want you to answer the questions. A lot of people don't know how they're doing it. So I think the best way to do that is to take a lot more practice tests than people tell you to take, especially the ones from AAMC, because those are the ones that are directly translated to MCAT, and they make all the tests and everything. And if you sit there and learn how the test is kind of how it's made, and how everything's structured, and how they want you to answer the questions, that's going to give you almost as much benefit as studying for the material. I think that's a really big part of taking the test, is learning how to take the test itself. The second step is to kind of not study what you don't have to study. And this is something that I stress to people when they ask me questions about how to prepare for the MCAT. A lot of people spend way too much time learning things that will never be on the MCAT. And you need to take time to kind of go on the AAMC website and to just kind of learn all the material. They have a whole list of everything that's going to be tested on the exam. There's, when you're studying these books, and specifically Kaplan, because that's what I used. They laid out pretty well what's not going to be on the test. So anything that you study, they will tell you this whole section will not be on the test, and you need to know that. I think, as important as it is to study everything that you need to study and to do well on it, I think it's just as important to not study what you don't have to study. You will save so much time and so much energy, and so much of your brain capacity will not be held up in these little extra things that you don't need to know, if you kind of know exactly what it is that you need to learn. So step number 3, I think it's kind of like an offshoot of step number 2. Utilize your time properly. I think the most important thing when it comes to studying for the MCAT while still kind of maintaining your life and your mental well-being is to, utilize your time and not spend way too much time doing things you don't have to do. I could give you one specific example of what I did. Is a lot of people use Khan Academy. I think Khan Academy is good. They have a whole thing with AMC, and they have all the things that you need to learn. They have great videos, and I definitely recommend using them. But when I sat in the car and I'd be driving to school, or I'd be driving to work, or I'd be going wherever I needed to go, I would kind of just plug my phone in and listen to these videos while I was driving. Or if I was if I was doing something, if I was sitting at the DMV, I'd have, like a flashcards app, and they have apps on iPhone and stuff like that, where they kind of have flashcards ready made for you for, anything that's on the MCAT. You don't have to sit there and make them. And, when you take these little moments in your day that you kind of are not doing anything, and you kind of utilize them to your advantage, I think it adds up in the end. So, that's one way of utilizing your time. I'm sure there's more ways. I'm not going to go too much into detail on that one. Another big step on, I think, actually the most important step on doing well on the MCAT, not so much even the whole like maintaining your life thing, just doing well on the MCAT, is to not change the way that you study for the exam. This is one piece of advice that I got from my cousin who's over in Idaho, and he's in residency now. But back in the year before I started studying, he kind of told me, listen, your whole life you've been studying a certain way. Different people study differently, and you definitely 100% should not change that. And people watch videos on how to study. Do I make notes? Do I study on my computer? What books should I read? How should I read it? Stuff like that. And you kind of should not listen to any of that. The way you've been studying for your whole life has been working for you. You will waste so much of your time, and you're probably going to end up doing more harm by learning how to study differently. Because not only are you studying for the material now you're studying like a completely new method of learning the material. So that's gonna completely just flip everything, and it's gonna pretty much just waste your time. Okay, so last but not least, the last important thing that I have to say, the last step, is to just kind of not stress yourself out. You gotta learn when to put the books down. You gotta know, if you're studying, say you wake up at 10 a.m. and you start studying at 10:30 a.m. and you want to study until like 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Say it's 6 p.m. and you didn't do the chapters that you wanted to do, and you didn't finish up with, this specific section of the biology book for Kaplan or whatever. You kind of, instead of doing it in a manner where you're kind of doing it by chapter, and you need to finish this on time, or you need to finish it, period. Do it based on the time. So kind of, if you're finishing at 5 p.m., it doesn't matter where you are, what section of the book you're at, just put the books down. So instead of, waking up and, starting the section and being like, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to stop at 5 p.m., you're going to think, okay, I need to finish chapters 1 and 2. And yesterday I wanted to finish, chapters 3 and 4 of the other book, and I didn't do it on time. So today I'm going to study faster. So as soon as you have that mentality, you're going to study faster, you're going to rush it, and you're not going to do as well. You're not going to retain the information as well. So if you're at, if it's 5 p.m. and you haven't finished it, it's okay. Put the books down. You can do it tomorrow, because once you do it tomorrow, you're going to learn the information a little bit better. And when you're starting to study for the exam, kind of leave a little extra time at the end, because you're gonna have moments like that. So it's gonna kind of leak into that time. So once you do that, it's gonna be okay for you to kind of just put the books down and to just do it the next day. With that being said, I kind of don't have any more steps. I'm gonna probably go more into detail about how specifically you should study, what books are the best books to use, the resources you need to use, what exactly it's like taking the MCAT, all those specific details, and all those things. I might make videos in the future. So go ahead, subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends, leave a comment. I hope you guys do well. Good luck on everything, and peace out.